Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we're reviewing the Warhammer 40k Dawn of Fire series novel, The Iron Kingdom, by author Nick Kyme. As always with reviews, it'll be spoiler free, followed by a little spoiler reaction talk at the end for those that have already read the book. A few talking points I'd like to discuss. But as always, let's begin by checking out the synopsis off the back of the book. A war-weary battle group Praxis arrives at the night world of Kamedar, ruled by the Iron Queen Orla, to return the Queen's slain daughter and heir, who died fighting in Guilliman's name. In truth, the Imperium's mission here is twofold: to strip Kamedar of its resources in order to resupply the flagging armada, and prepare the Ironhold Protectorate to become part of the defensive Anaxian line, a crucial bulwark for the Indomitus Crusade. With Kamedar having survived many years without the Imperium's aid, what should have been a simple reunion between allies soon becomes a vicious feud. As division turns loyal souls against one another, the agents of Abaddon move in the shadows, seeking to manipulate this growing rift to their own ends. Can the Imperium bring itself back from the brink before it's too late? Or will the hand of Abaddon arise triumphant, halting the Avenging Sun's reclamation in its path? So the Iron Kingdom, Book 5 in the Dawn of Fire series. Let's begin with the premise of this one, because that's something I find really interesting and quite unique and original. Rather than your straight up planetary assault or campaign expansion, here it's almost the breath between those events. Instead of the all-conquering, almighty Indomitus Crusade, here you're getting a glimpse of what keeps it running, the practicalities of having such a crusade, how an Indomitus fleet resupplies its enormous demands. And of course here you get to see what that means for both sides of the picture, the Indomitus fleet themselves, as well as the people of Kamedar. The unique twist on this is that Kamedar is an Imperial Knight world, and thus fiercely independent. For those of you that aren't too aware of the Imperial Knight factions, to kind of sum them up, although a part of the Imperium and loyal to the Emperor, Knight worlds are generally seen as a sovereign power and bound to the Imperium through treaties or alliances. And seeing as these Knight worlds are, as you may expect, brimming with Imperial Knights, they are normally bastions of power, and Kamedar is no different. So essentially this all boils down to a very intriguing hotbed of viewpoints. You have the Indomitus fleet and its commanders demanding and expecting to get everything they need, indeed feeling like it's their right. Then it's beyond even questioning. And then you have the Queen of Kamedar, expecting in her own right to be treated with the reverence her station demands, to balance her place as ruler of her people, as well as a loyal servant to the Emperor, which is very much how she begins this story. However, as the synopsis highlights, there is also the added weight of the Queen grieving her daughter's death within this very same crusade. As a character, Queen Orla comes off as someone who clearly knows how to wield her power. As the figurehead of her people, she manages to balance that of a ruler and grieving mother beneath well, at least to begin this story, trying to use that head of a statesman over the emotion of a festering pain. Seeing her unspoken duel of wits and politics against the Admiral of the Fleet was a particular highlight for me. These are the kind of small insights into the lore that I absolutely love to think about. How the admirals of these fleets would approach the governors or regents of worlds they come to. and so getting a glimpse of it here is absolutely fascinating. There's a definite play for power unspoken between the two, and I think this contest of wills, all played out beneath the veneer of decorum, was absolutely my favourite part of this story. Now, the Admiral for his own part has the righteousness of knowing he was appointed by the Lord Commander himself, in knowing he is fighting for the Imperium's survival. And so yeah, maybe you get that overconfident ego within his actions, once more throwing those shades of grey onto the beloved Imperium of mankind. However, I don't think it goes to the extent where you begin to view him as the villain, particularly for us the reader, as obviously we understand just what that wider picture within the universe is. We know just how important these Indomitus fleets are. Inevitably, the story unravels and the situation explodes as you know it would. And I think it's a sign of my unashamedly biased loyalty to the Imperium that I was actually becoming really angry by the Queen's actions. When it kicks off, it kicks off. And there's something that goes down that in my eyes is unforgivable to the Imperium. And so, I don't know, I kind of lost the sympathy I had for the Queen and Kamidar, wanting instead the fleet to just show the full force of power that they can wield. Now, the situation around Kamidar kind of prevents them from being able to do so, but I was absolutely full on the Imperium's side here. Now, I don't think I was supposed to feel that way, it does have to be said, as there are plenty of shades of grey on both sides. But it all just struck me in a way that I was fully behind the actions of the Admiral thereafter. Again, maybe just because we know what's truly at stake here, whereas these worlds are completely naive to the true dangers out there. You do end up kind of leaning towards the Admiral's viewpoint, that these backwater worlds just don't know what's at stake. But it's this conflict that really carries the story along, and it all bubbles up very nicely, raising in temperature at a nice constant pace. I will also say that anytime you get to see the Sisters of Silence at work, it is absolutely a win-win. These women are absolute badasses, and the sister here was portrayed brilliantly throughout. Anytime she was on the page, she oozed danger. A great aura about her. And the same could be said for a side story involving the Marines Malevolent. I thoroughly enjoyed the lethality and the simple, uncompromising nature they brought. These were Astartes doing what they do best. Simple, unfiltered war. So through them you got to see the grim realities of the decisions made by others. The repercussions of the decisions the Admiral made. And of all the side stories, I thought the Marines Malevolent provided the best alternative viewpoints, if you like. Now, on the side stories and POVs overall, for me there was just one too many stories within this one. The Dawn of Fire series has the hard task of trying to tell these major narratives. And sometimes it takes several chapters for things to settle down and establish just who the main characters are that you're going to be following. And I found that to be quite true here. The first few chapters became quite confusing trying to keep up with all the new characters. The ones you know and the ones you don't. And though once you got through that it became clearer and easier to follow, having finished it, I think there's a couple of side stories that for me didn't really add anything overall. And I personally would have enjoyed a little more time seeing that game of power expanded between the fleet and Kamidar. This is a great look into the realities of life within the Imperium, the truth of the immense struggle and sacrifice that the average person has completely no idea about. The farmer on Kamidar who cares only for the state of his harvest. the Baron who only cares for the continued wealth and success of his family. Yet having an Indomitus fleet show up, bringing the realities of the galaxy to their doorstep, the fundamental change to their lives and existence, was simply a brilliant concept. And I think this story did a great job of bringing that to life. The tension felt palpable and genuine throughout. Adding on top of that the element of a grieving mother really just managed to elevate that tension to a whole nother level. I know I'm sounding a little repetitive on this aspect, but so often we have a scenario where a battle is preordained, that this is what the forces are being prepared for. You have your clear good guy versus the bad guy if you like. However, here those elements were completely in flux. There were no clear heroes or villains. It will all fall to how you feel about the situations as they unravel. And with all the tension building, you can feel it edging towards a conflict. A conflict that part of you doesn't want to see, because it will pit loyal citizen against loyal citizen. All coming about by leaders playing politics, and both sides not truly appreciating the other. Personally, I could have just done without 2 or maybe even 3 of the extra side stories that were in here. The plot in itself was great, I just don't think it needed much else. Overall, I'd give it a 3 out of 5. It's a good, enjoyable read, and one I definitely recommend. If you know me by now, you know I like my stories to be character heavy, to just focus on 1 or 2 narratives so you can really drill into the characters, get to know them throughout their journeys. Here, I'm just not sure I was able to do it as much as I would have liked, because there were so many characters' stories to tell. I think a lot of you will probably land closer to a 4, with it being a great read, and one that's definitely action-packed once it starts ramping up. It most definitely continues the overarching story and narrative that's developing throughout the Dawn of Fire series. So honestly, what's not to enjoy? I definitely hope this is a premise we will see more of in the future. The crusades and fleets between the battles. What the realities of their survival and arrival to a world means. But okay, that's it for the spoiler-free review, everyone. Now, a few talking points I'd like to discuss for those that have already read the book. Okay, so the reference I made to siding completely with the Imperials, that came about entirely from the Queen's massacre of the Imperial delegation. In particular, the moment they killed one of the Emperor's own custodies. When Vicalion went down, my jaw literally hit the floor. Oh, that was it. My sympathy went right out the window there. There is no coming back from that. They are the literal representation of the Emperor himself. I don't care what the reasons are. You kill a custodian, you have crossed the line. There was no coming back from that. And I really enjoyed how even after this event, and the uneasy ceasefire was called, how the Queen knew she had to keep this secret. That she knew no matter what, when word of this massacre leaked, that they had killed a custodian, the talons of the Emperor, that it was always going to be game over. In her grief, in her anger, she had led her planet into a situation that really she knew she was not going to be able to get them out of. The second that message did leak, the war was on. It was obliteration or occupation from there on out. And again, honestly, I was all for it. I might just have to rename myself Inquisitor Rho, because yeah, I was all in on the destruction of Kamodar. Now, like I said, I thought there was a couple of point of view side stories too many. A few too many characters to follow along. I think we probably could have done without the rebels on Kamodar and the Black Templars. And I don't think we always need to see the enemy's point of view. but I did enjoy it when the Templars made their 2 brief entrances to Kamodar. I was flabbergasted at first at the notion they were going to side with Kamodar against the fleet, that it was even being considered, regardless of whatever oaths they made. But I actually enjoyed how it worked out. The first veiled threat to the Queen, and then once it was revealed just what she had done, the Templars came to take her out. But it did have me wondering for a while. The other side story I mentioned of the Marines' Malevolent, I really enjoyed their guerrilla campaign. How it was all still being prosecuted whilst the ceasefire had been declared. We get to see the humane, more caring side of the Astartes so often that having such a brutal, uncompromising character in Renyard, it kind of gave me throwbacks to the Minotaurs chapter in the Watchers of the Throne series. It was a different play to the standard view. Here we had a loyal space marine doing exactly as he was ordered and expected to do, yet clearly being shown to be the bad guy of his story. It showed how well the author Nick Kyme played off the elements of how no one's a winner, or no one's righteous on both sides. Now, I did think the brief cameo of Messinius was a little odd. I didn't think Admiral Artemis had done much wrong, to be honest. I guess the main purpose of it was to highlight the importance and pressure on the task at hand, how there really was no time to lose. And it also adds yet another reference to Guilliman's use of legions, how you can begin to understand why the other powers within the Imperium began to doubt him quite so much. It's a power that Guilliman seems more than happy to wield whenever he feels like it. That's something that many within the Imperium would not like to see. And finally, we got the big cameo at the end, Abaddon the Despoiler. Obviously, the whole truth of what his objective is still yet to completely unravel. With the Arcs of Omen going on right now, I wouldn't be too surprised to see it become intertwined somehow. And I think it's a definite the Star Child is coming back into play, most likely within the series soon. But overall, like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed this one, and I expect you to too, probably even more so than me. As always everyone, what did you think? If you've read it, drop your thoughts in the comments below. As always, huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. With that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.